Well, hello to everyone listening right now. Welcome to Consumer Behaviour. This is topic 4 for advertising for semester 1, 2020. All right, let's get into it. So, what's this all about then? Well, advertising effectiveness is intertwined with that of understanding consumer behaviour. So to understand how to make an ad effective, you also need to understand how to influence the behavior of the person watching that ad. So this is what this week is about. There's a few rules that I go through before we get into the nitty-gritty and the more interesting details for this topic. So let's cover them right now. Number 1, know your target market and the market itself. So you need to really know who your target market are, how they live, where they live, what they earn, think and believe. We're talking here the 4 bases of segmentation you may have covered in MKTG2034 in an earlier semester. That said, if you've forgotten, go back and go through your slides again or textbook or whatever information you've got left over from that course to help you with understanding how that theory applies. You're trying to build, though, a picture of the consumer. So think of how someone might do that with you and then try and write down all the different ways someone could find information about you via social media or purchasing behavior or things like that. And that's exactly what marketers do here, to understand their target market better. Because to understand and know your target market better means you can more accurately predict their behavior, which means you can more accurately design advertising and promotional efforts which can influence that behavior. Okay, second part of this is to know your competitors and respect them. So know who your competitors are, big, large, and indifferent, and also know them in 2 categories, direct and indirect. Don't underestimate indirect ever, because more often than not, that can be the one thing which sinks your campaign. So understand what your indirect competitor is. Is it a similar activity or product or whatever the case is, which may yet be considered by the consumer to be a direct competitor in their mind. So understand your competitors and respect them. Rule 2, know your theory. So stop making excuses here. You've got to start chasing that theory down yourself. You've got to start learning, reading, and thinking, because marketing never stops, and nor should you. If you do stop, then you can sit back and watch as your competitors play soccer with whatever strategy you thought was going to work. And they all might more likely than not beat Chelsea more than Melbourne Victory. So think about that as well in context of if you don't keep on top of what's going on in the real world and know it yourself and not just be able to have the ability to Google it, then you will go backwards pretty quickly. So know that theory. Know it well, know how to apply it, know how others apply it, and know how it might be improved upon in the future. Okay, so rule 3, know how to combine 1 and 2 effectively. So that's really important, because as a practical marketer, and this is a practical discipline, and this is a very practical course, you should know how to apply 1 and 2 quite effectively to understand and critically analyze what is going on with someone else's strategy, advertising, and communications. Okay, so let's touch on a point I talked about just before about building a picture of a consumer, and we'll talk about a couple of examples. This is a B2B example, but as you can see, what you're doing here is using all different means at your disposal to build the picture up of that consumer. And so here you've got understanding the background of this person, their behaviors, any sort of motivating factors, their needs, and any challenges they may face. And this helps you drill down a bit more effectively to understand what is going to work with this person in a communication and advertising perspective. But that said, if you don't know what this person is and who they are, then you've got to start off really being a lot less effective than your competitors might be with the same information. So, in other words, the more vague and generalized you are, the less effective your advertising in comms is. It's not a safety net approach here. to just broadly describe a target market. So I remember one assignment I had to read where the person had described the target market of their product in their campaign of being aged 18 to 99. That is not going to get you anywhere. That will not get you a pass even. You need to be quite specific here about your target market and who they are. So drill down as much as you possibly can and narrow that focus down into a very defined target market or markets. And I need to know who they are. So a table like this and formatting like this is perfectly acceptable. I just need to know who that person is. All right, so in practice, when you work in practice, most of your research will come via social media apps who share their data in return for you advertising your products on them and sales of other marketing products like insights, for example. So you will, though, have to build your own database from scratch. Some people will do it for you. Some people, though, will charge a lot of money to do that activity, but it's better that you learn how to do it yourself. Back in the day in a marketing undergrad course being taught at a university, we would teach people how to do that. And I did that myself when I was a student. So it's important to understand more information about your target market is usually picked up by your company or product or firm when you have contact with that consumer. So you need a database where all that information can be entered. A very simple one you might have noticed already around Canberra is how people might ask you for your postcode, which is a very, very easy way to understand who your target market is or who you're serving as a customer in your store. So that helps you build a very easy database up of the consumers who might be visiting your store and gives you some very basic but yet critical insights into how you can improve your marketing and advertising. All right, on to competitive analysis. Yes, you should do one. Yes, you should know about your competitors. And as I said before, direct and indirect. That picture opposite to the text is quite interesting on how you might want to do that in a very basic way, but also understanding how they may work. But overall rule here is fine. So understand and know your market. So understand what works currently in that market as well in terms of advertising and promotions and why that is. Understand why exactly something is successful in a target market before you go off and apply it yourself, because it may not work for you. You need to understand the reasons for why it is working for someone else. So who are your biggest competitors and what strategy are they using? Because that's going to help guide you on what strategy you should use. I say guide, I do not mean cut and paste. And then it may help you as well understand where you are placed next to them. So positioning map or matrix are quite handy tools here. Again, you can go back through your 2004 notes and you should find what a positioning map or matrix is. And they are quite good devices to use as providing an overall perspective on where your brand may be placed against others on a simple variable. All right, moving on to consumer behavior here. Keep in mind with consumer behavior, there are many, many models covered for different aspects of consumer behavior. This one here, the EKB model, is the decision process. So a very famous model, a model which is well used in practice to this very day. There are some people who may have some criticisms about it, but yet most people in practice apply this one because they know it works quite well. So even here, knowledge is powerful and important. So you should know a model like this when you discuss things with your client, because you will not be targeting every step of that decision process with an advertising campaign. You'll instead focus on one or two steps, and per campaign that is, and then you may even focus on particular aspects which may influence those one or two parts of that process you see. So for example, you may try and change someone's beliefs or their motives about something, or you may focus on the cultural norm, a la Easter, for example. So things like that are very important when understanding how these consumer behavior models are tied up with advertising. But also, that said, it's also good to know where the consumer may be in their purchasing process to understand if your advertising will be effective. It's no use trying to raise awareness of a brand when the consumer is really at the point of making a purchase. So try and understand how these models work in practice and how they may influence your advertising overall. Also, keep in mind here that if you do a campaign, you may focus on one or two aspects of that decision process per campaign, but you may yet do 3 or 4 campaigns through a year where you may change that focus around. So, as an example, mid-year sales, which are about to hit us all, or Christmas or Black Friday or events like that. You might, or Singles Day for those people who are in Asia, then you might change the focus of your advertising around from being on problem recognition to perhaps on an alternative evaluation or even choice being made by consumers. And then you might focus in that ad itself on different variables of the decision process they might be making. So, for example, lifestyle attitudes towards the brand or product. So keep in mind that all these things here, all these theories do influence the effectiveness overall of an ad and how they're tied in with consumer behavior. But that said too, there are many, many theories in consumer behavior which are significant in their own right. In fact, there's probably hundreds. There are even more coming out every single week, and we'll talk about it towards the end of this lecture about what those theories might be. But each theory can be an entire area or even course or degree program of study in its own right. I'm only teaching advertising, not consumer behavior, so I can't teach you all these different things you need to know about consumer behavior. That's up to whoever teaches consumer behavior to teach you those theories. But it's also up to you to retain that knowledge so you can understand how it does apply in a advertising sense. Okay, there's a couple examples here I've gone through and provided. In fact, there's more than a couple, there's several in this lecture. And what they are, I'll put them in here for, is just good practice for you to check where you're at with your knowledge and your understanding of a topic area. So there's different examples here on how you might want to apply them, how you may want to think of them. And so go through each of these examples I provided here for you. Previous slide here about Woolworths. And so you can apply each of these yourself and understand. Okay, there can be a spanner in the works though with some of this theory, and quite simply put, the spanner in the works are some emerging theories which come out to challenge the existing theories. And we have one here, and I talked about this just before, about theories which may be emerging and challenge what you already know or how you may know it. So there are ones in consumer culture, and these are challenging how consumers may behave in different cultural, societal, and even political contexts. And consumer culture theory, or CCT as some people call it, is one area where we're trying to get a bigger and better understanding of how consumers may behave in different variables upon their lives. So that may mean how we look at advertising effectiveness may also change. And so therefore it's good to try and keep up with these readings. I provided a link at the end of the lecture on some of these theories so you can track them down yourself, and that way you can spend some time catching up on some of these. But the lesson here is keep reading, learning and thinking, because marketing never ever stops and it's always evolving and changing, and so you need to keep on top of this sort of information as it comes out and when it comes out, because after all, I'm only teaching you for one semester. I'm not next to you all the time to tell you what theories are coming out all the time in the land of marketing. All right, so these are the further readings I talked about. They're all hyperlinks, so hopefully they will work still, and they're good references to go off and look at for more information relevant to advertising, but considering consumer behavior theory and how it involves things. Right, that is the finish of this particular lecture on this theory. So I hope you find it informative. I hope you like it. They're not meant to be full replacement of time of the lectures I would have delivered during the semester, but yet they're the same slide deck I would have used. So as you can see by the time count, I'll try to keep it short and sweet, and hopefully you're still all listening and haven't fallen asleep or looked at cats on YouTube. Cats, cute, nice, fun, playful. All right, that's it for me. I'll talk to you soon in the next topic.